And this one, Professor Chomsky, we'll start with you. What do you think the U.S. can and should do to help stop drug trade in Latin America?
Well, one thing we can do to stop drug trade is to stop cooperating with it. So, for example, that won't end it. In fact, it will come nowhere near ending it, but it'll be a good start. So, for example, take, say, General Noriega. He's been well known to be up to his neck in the drug racket since certainly the early 70s, mid-70s at the latest. And he was a very favored U.S. ally until the mid-1980s, long after that. The reason was because he was performing services for us. He was offering a base for the attack against Nicaragua and so on. He ran a totally fraudulent election in 1984. This guy who's right at the top of the the Colombian drug cartel. We rewarded that by sending George Shultz down to bless the occasion as a great step forward in democracy after the fraudulent election. For reasons that are still not entirely clear, but apparently because Noriega at some point stopped following our orders, we decided to turn against him, and incidentally we've achieved the magnificent result of organizing virtually most of Latin America and even the Catholic Church in Panama in favor of Noriega, who they hate because of the form of U.S. intervention. That's a real achievement. But one thing we could have done is to avoid that form of participation in the drug racket. The same is true of the Contra story. There's very little doubt by now, I think the evidence is very convincing, that the Contra-Aid program was tied up with drugs. That's not the first time, incidentally. You look at the history of clandestine warfare, and you find that it's very often linked to the drug racket. There's a very simple reason for that. Covered actions, clandestine actions, require untraceable money. And one of the places you go for untraceable money and for thugs and so on and so forth is to the drug racket. That's why the CIA back in the late 1940s, as part of its efforts to break up the French labor unions, reconstituted the Corsican Mafia, apparently offering as a quid pro quo the rebuilding of the heroin racket. That's why one of the major centers of the drug trade shifted over to the Golden Triangle in Laos, Thailand, Burma, at the time of U.S. clandestine operations there. And that's why the Contra operations are involved in drugs. Now, this is a small part of it. That's not the whole main source of drugs is coming from elsewhere, but that's a part. So one thing we could do to try to control the drug racket is to stop supporting it. A second thing we can do, and this now becomes more serious, my own view, frankly, is that the only way the drug racket will be controlled is by legalizing it. That's a proposal that's been made repeatedly. I think we're in this has to be thought through carefully. It's not a trivial matter. But I think we're in a situation rather like that of prohibition structurally. The drugs are going to come. The drug racket is linked to powerful financial institutions. Ramon Millan Rodriguez, the accountant for the Colombian cartel, testified not long ago before Congress that he had connections with major American banks. He hardly needed his testimony to know this. This is a major capitalist institution. It's going to work. It's going to work through existing institutions. If it's illegal, it's also going to build up crime, organized crime and terror. Now, I really do not think there's going to be any way to control it. It's too closely interlinked with major centers of finance, capital, power, and so on. And I think the only thing we can do is to decriminalize it and try to reduce it in the manner in which the plague of alcoholism, which of course still exists, was decriminalized, thus reducing the power of the criminal elements while not eliminating alcohol. And I am pretty much convinced that that's the direction we're going to have to go if we want to overcome this plague, and it is a plague.
Mr. Perle, what can the United States do to stop the drug trade in Latin America?
Frankly, I'm not either expert or particularly interested in that question, so I won't say more than that I think the idea that we should legalize drugs, and we're not talking now about a little pot, we're talking about hard drugs, is on the theory that this will that because it is so well protected by capitalist interests, if we legalize it, at least there won't be criminals involved, is an absurd notion. We may not be able to stop the flow from Latin America. We can, to some degree, reduce it, which keeps market prices high, and that may be the best we can hope to accomplish.